In the 70s, life was simpler. No cell phones, no internet, no endless distractions, just family, warmth, and homes that felt alive. The decor, the furniture, the little details, everything created an atmosphere that was cozy and welcoming. In this video, we'll revisit 20 must-have items that made every 1970s home special. So stick with me until the end, and let's relive that era together, when homes truly felt like home. Let's start with wood paneling. Wood paneling was everywhere in the 1970s. Living rooms, basements, even kitchens. No space was safe from those dark, grooved walls. And you know what? People loved it. It was affordable, easy to install, and instantly transformed a plain room into something cozy and stylish. Sure, it was usually faux wood, but back then, who cared? It looked like wood, and that was good enough. This trend had its roots in the 1950s post-war housing boom, but by the 1970s, it had exploded. Families wanted warm, welcoming spaces that felt comfortable, and wood paneling delivered. It wasn't about being flashy or modern. It was about creating a space where you wanted to stay. Think about it. Every basement hangout you remember from your childhood probably had wood paneling. That's where you watched game shows, played board games, or just lounged on the couch with family and friends. And here's the thing, wood paneling was tough. Kids could bump into it, furniture could scrape it, and it still held up. If you scratched it, you didn't need to replace it. You just buffed it out or slapped on a little polish. Low maintenance, durable, and timeless in its own way. Today, people look back and call it tacky or outdated, but let's be honest, what they call dated, we call classic. Modern drywall and sleek finishes just don't have the same character. Back then, a room with wood paneling meant something. It felt lived in, personal, and warm. So here's a question for you. Why did we ever get rid of it? Wouldn't you rather sit in a room surrounded by wood paneling than the cold, sterile spaces we see today? Let me know in the comments. Shag carpeting. If you grew up in the 1970s, there's no way you don't remember shag carpeting. Thick, fluffy, and bold. It was more than just a floor covering. It was a statement. Wall to wall in burnt orange, avocado green, or mustard yellow, shag carpet turned any room into a soft, colorful playground. You didn't just walk on it, you sank into it. This wasn't any regular carpet. Shag was luxury, or at least it felt like it back then. It became popular as a reaction to the sterile minimalism of the previous decades. By the 1970s, homes embraced texture, warmth, and comfort, and shag carpet delivered all three. Bedrooms, living rooms, even bathrooms weren't complete without that plush layer underfoot. Some families even went the extra mile and added shag rugs to match the walls or curtains. And let's talk about the colors. Nothing was subtle. Those bold hues made rooms feel alive, even if they didn't exactly match. But back then, matching wasn't the point. It was about creating a space that felt fun and comfortable. Of course, shag had its quirks. Keeping it clean wasn't easy. Dust, crumbs, and the occasional lost toy could disappear for days, and once something spilled, forget it. But even with all its challenges, shag carpet had soul. Modern floors might be sleek, but they're cold. Wallpaper. In the 1970s, wallpaper was everywhere. It wasn't just a design choice, it was practically a requirement. Bold florals, geometric patterns, and wild color combinations covered every wall, sometimes even the ceiling. Bedrooms, kitchens, bathrooms. If there was a bare wall, wallpaper took care of it. The designs were loud and unapologetic. Oversized daisies, swirling oranges and yellows, and psychedelic prints turned homes into vibrant, eye-catching spaces. And here's a fun fact, wallpaper was a sign of pride. Families didn't settle for plain walls because plain was boring. A patterned wall gave a room character, something modern minimalism can't even touch. But installing it? That was another story. Rolls of paper, buckets of glue, and lots of patience. Wallpapering was no small task. If you've ever seen someone carefully line up the edges so the patterns match perfectly, you know how serious it was. And once it was up, it stayed up. Some of that 1970s wallpaper is probably still clinging to walls today, refusing to give up its spot. Do you remember the texture? Many designs had a slight velvet-like feel or a raised surface. It wasn't just about looks, it was about adding depth to a room. And when the sun hit those patterns just right, the whole space lit up. Sure, people rip it out now and call it dated, but back then, wallpaper turned homes into works of art. It gave every room personality and life. Isn't that better than the sterile white walls we see everywhere today? Linoleum floors. Linoleum floors were the go-to option for kitchens and bathrooms in the 1970s. Why? They were affordable, easy to clean, and durable. But let's be honest, it wasn't just about practicality. Linoleum brought style. Bright patterns, checkerboard swirls, and faux tile designs made those floors pop like nothing else. Every home seemed to have it. You'd walk into the kitchen and there it was, a splash of color under your feet. Orange, avocado green, golden yellow. You couldn't escape it. And don't forget those geometric patterns. Some floors were so busy you'd get dizzy looking at them too long, but back then, nobody minded. It was fun, it was bold, it was home. Linoleum wasn't just popular, it was built to last. How many floors today could survive decades of spills, scuffs, and countless family dinners? And if you dropped something, no worries. Linoleum could take it. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. These days, people rip it out and call it outdated. But here's the thing, those linoleum floors held memories. They were the backdrop for holiday baking, homework sessions, and Saturday morning breakfasts. Tell me this, what's so special about the cold, sterile tiles of today? Rotary phones. Before cell phones and touchscreens, there was the rotary phone. You remember it, don't you? That heavy handset, the satisfying click, click, click as you turned the dial, and the patience it took to wait for the numbers to spin back. It was slow, yes, but it made every phone call feel important. Rotary phones weren't just functional, they were part of the home. You might have had one mounted on the kitchen wall with a coiled cord that stretched across the room, or maybe a sleek one sitting on the living room table, and they came in colors too: beige, avocado green, mustard yellow. Picking up the phone felt like an event. Missed a number while dialing? Too bad, you started over. But wasn't there something satisfying about the process? It wasn't instant or disposable. You couldn't text or scroll. If the phone rang, you answered. If you wanted to talk, you made time. That was the magic of the rotary phone. Crocheted blankets. Every home in the 1970s seemed to have at least one crocheted blanket, draped over the back of a couch, folded at the end of a bed, or tucked away in a rocking chair. It was more than just a blanket. It was a handmade piece of love. Your grandma probably made one, or maybe your mom did, sitting for hours, looping colorful yarn into patterns of zigzags, squares, or flowers. And the colors? Oh, they didn't hold back. Bright oranges, deep browns, mustard yellows, colors that screamed 1970s and made the room feel warm. These blankets weren't perfect, but that's what made them special. They weren't store-bought or mass-produced. They were personal. You could wrap yourself in one on a chilly night, feeling its weight and warmth, or lie on the floor with it while watching TV. They lasted too. Decades later, you might still find one tucked away in an old trunk or on the back of a favorite chair. Modern throws might be soft, but they don't have the charm or the memories of a crocheted blanket. Rattan Furniture. Rattan Furniture was the soul of 1970s home decor. Lightweight, natural, and versatile, it found its way into living rooms, patios, and sunrooms across America. Chairs, sofas, tables, even shelving units were made from rattan or wicker, giving homes a breezy, relaxed vibe. It was bohemian, it was earthy, and it was everywhere. What made rattan so popular? For one, it was a perfect fit for the era's love of nature and simplicity. In the 70s, people wanted homes to feel organic, as if they were bringing a bit of the outdoors inside. A rattan chair with a bright floral cushion was all it took to give a room character. And let's not forget those hanging rattan egg chairs. If you had one, you were truly living the dream. Rattan also had staying power. It was sturdy enough to last for years, but light enough to move around. Need an extra seat for guests? Just drag in a rattan chair, setting up the patio for summer. Out came the rattan set. It was practical and stylish, something modern furniture just can't replicate. Do you remember the creak of sitting down in a rattan chair? Or maybe the woven pattern pressing into your legs after a long afternoon? They were little reminders of a time when furniture was simple, affordable, and most importantly, memorable. Pyrex Dishes. Every 1970s kitchen had Pyrex dishes, and for good reason. They were colorful, durable, and perfect for everything from casseroles to leftovers. These weren't just baking dishes, they were works of art. The vibrant patterns, flowers, snowflakes, and geometric shapes were instantly recognizable. If your mom or grandma pulled out a Pyrex dish, you knew something good was coming. Pyrex wasn't new to the 70s. It had been around since the early 1900s, but in this decade it hit its peak with designs that matched the bold aesthetics of the time. Avocado green, burnt orange, and mustard yellow Pyrex became staples, and entire collections were passed down like treasured family heirlooms. And here's what made them so great: they lasted forever. These glass dishes could go from the oven to the table to the fridge without skipping a beat. Drop one, and unless you were unlucky, it would survive the fall. If you still have a Pyrex dish tucked away in your cupboard, consider yourself lucky. Not only are they functional, but collectors today will pay top dollar for those vintage designs. They're a little piece of 1970s magic that's still alive. Pod chairs. If you wanted to feel futuristic in the 1970s, you bought a pod chair. Shaped like an egg or a capsule, these chairs looked like they came straight out of a sci-fi movie, and maybe that was the point. Pod chairs were bold, modern, and instantly eye-catching. They were often made of plastic or fiberglass on the outside, with soft, cushioned interiors in bright oranges, reds, or browns. Sitting in one felt like entering your own little cocoon, a perfect spot to relax, listen to music, or escape the noise of the house. They were especially popular with younger families looking for something different. If you had one in your home, you were ahead of the curve. And let's face it, there was something undeniably cool about curling up in one of these chairs while spinning a vinyl record or flipping through a magazine. The pod chair was more than just furniture, it was a conversation starter. It represented a time when homes embraced creativity and individuality, pushing the boundaries of what was normal. Today they're considered design icons, but back then they were simply fun. TV trays. TV trays were a 1970s household staple. Portable, lightweight, and endlessly useful, they brought dinner straight to the couch. Who needed a dining table when you could eat in front of the TV while watching The Brady Bunch or All in the Family? These folding trays were perfect for TV dinners, snacks, or even a game of cards. Most homes had a full set, 4 trays and a matching stand, tucked neatly in the corner. The designs were classic 70s, faux wood, floral patterns, or bold geometric prints. They weren't fancy, but they were practical, and that's what mattered. Kids loved them because they made meal times feel like a treat. Adults loved them because they were easy to clean, store, and move. TV trays also symbolized a shift in family life. The formality of sitting around a dining table gave way to more casual, relaxed evenings. Families bonded over TV shows while balancing plates on their laps. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you still remember the sound of the tray legs snapping open or the wobble of trying not to spill your drink. Modern homes might have sleek coffee tables, but they'll never replace the charm and convenience of a trusty TV tray. Globe lights. If there's one thing 1970s homes nailed, it was lighting, and nothing screamed 70s style like globe lights. These round, glowing orbs hung from ceilings, casting soft, warm light that made every room feel inviting. Whether they were made of frosted glass, plastic, or shiny metallic finishes, globe lights were as much decor as they were functional. They fit everywhere, over dining tables, in hallways, or as statement pieces in living rooms. If you wanted something extra modern, you could even find clusters of globe lights hanging at different heights. It was futuristic, sleek, and effortlessly cool. These lights were inspired by mid-century modern design, but the 70s took them to the next level. Paired with wood paneling, shag carpet, or funky wallpaper, a globe light completed the look. It gave rooms that soft, cozy glow that modern LED bulbs just can't replicate. Remember how they'd hum slightly when turned on, or how dust would gather on the tops, requiring a careful wipe with a damp cloth? Little details like that made globe lights unforgettable. They've come back in style now, but they'll never shine quite like they did in the 70s. Fringe Decor. Fringe was everywhere in the 1970s. From lampshades and curtains to blankets and even furniture, Fringe added texture and movement to home decor. It wasn't just an accent, it was a full-blown trend. The beauty of Fringe was in its versatility. You'd find it dangling elegantly from lamps, swishing across the bottom of sofas, or adding flair to cushions and throws. It was part of that bohemian meets retro vibe that defined the decade. Homes in the 70s weren't afraid to mix and match textures, and Fringe was the perfect finishing touch. The origins of Fringe go back centuries, but the 70s made it fun. Combined with macrame, wood paneling, and shag carpeting, it helped create spaces that felt warm, cozy, and and full of personality. Do you remember brushing your fingers through the fringe on a lampshade, or maybe the way a fringe throw would drape just right over the arm of a couch? Today's homes feel stripped down and sterile in comparison. Fringe brought a sense of softness and detail that's missing from modern design. Maybe that's why so many of us look back and miss it. Floating stairs. If your house had floating stairs in the 1970s, you were ahead of the curve. These staircases with open risers and sleek wood or metal finishes were the epitome of modern design. They weren't just functional, they were a statement. Floating stairs gave homes an open, airy feel, a far cry from the bulky, closed-off staircases of earlier decades. You'd see them in living rooms, entryways, or split-level homes where they doubled as a design feature. The clean lines paired perfectly with wood paneling and shag carpeting, blending the futuristic with the earthy. They were practical too. Floating stairs let light flow through the house, something people didn't think about much before. But let's be honest, they weren't for the faint of heart. If you were a kid in the 70s, those open steps were thrilling and maybe a little terrifying. Drop a toy through the gap and you'd hear it clatter to the floor below. And how many parents worried about slipping between the risers? Still, they were a bold design choice that showed your house was modern. Nowadays, floating stairs are making a comeback, but back then, they were the peak of cool. Do you remember a home that had them? They made every space feel bigger, brighter, and more sophisticated. Macrame wall hangings. Macrame was everywhere in the 1970s, and if you didn't have a macrame wall hanging, your house felt incomplete. Handmade with knotted cords, these intricate pieces were a labor of love, often made by family members or local artisans. Macrame wall hangings were bold and earthy, perfect for the decade's love of natural decor. They hung above couches, on entryway walls, or even in bedrooms, adding warmth and texture to every space. And they were versatile too. Some featured fringe that cascaded down like a waterfall, while others had geometric patterns woven in with beads or wooden dowels. Macrame wasn't limited to walls though. Plant hangers made of knotted cords dangled from ceilings, cradling pothos and ferns like works of art. Do you remember how they swayed gently when someone walked by? It was the kind of simple, handmade decor that gave homes personality. Sure, macrame faded away in the following decades, but back in the 70s, it represented creativity and connection. If you had one, someone likely made it for you, and that made it even more special. Mr. Coffee. The 1970s changed mornings forever with Mr. Coffee. Before this iconic machine, brewing coffee at home wasn't exactly convenient. You either boiled coffee grounds on the stove or used a percolator, which could overbrew your coffee into something bitter and undrinkable. Then came Mr. Coffee in 1972, and suddenly the process was simple, quick, and automatic. This wasn't just a coffee maker, it was a revolution. The machine's drip technology ensured a smoother, fresher taste, and the convenience was unmatched. The moment you woke up, you'd hear the comforting hum of Mr. Coffee working away, filling the house with that unmistakable aroma. Families loved it. Dads could finally get a reliable cup of coffee before work, and moms appreciated not having to hover over a percolator. It quickly became a kitchen essential, sitting proudly on countertops alongside Pyrex dishes and avocado green appliances. Fun fact, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio was the spokesperson for Mr. Coffee, which only boosted its popularity. If Joe trusted it, you could too. Today, fancy espresso machines and single-serve pods have taken over, but nothing beats the memory of Mr. Coffee humming in the background while you sat down to start the day. It wasn't just a machine, it was part of the morning ritual. Beanbag chairs. If you grew up in the 1970s, you probably flopped onto a beanbag chair more times than you can count. These squishy, shapeless seats were in bedrooms, basements, and living rooms everywhere, and for good reason. They were fun. Unlike stiff, formal furniture, beanbag chairs let you sink in and mold to whatever position you wanted. They were casual, cool, and perfect for the laid-back vibe of the decade. Made with vinyl, leatherette, or even groovy fabric covers, these chairs came in every color imaginable. Bright oranges, lime greens, and deep browns that screamed 70s style. Kids loved them because they were like sitting on a giant pillow. Parents loved them because they were cheap and easy to move. Plus, if you spilled a soda or dropped popcorn on one, a quick wipe was all it took to clean it up. Beanbags weren't just furniture, they were freedom. No more stiff chairs or formal dining tables. Just grab a beanbag and plop down wherever you wanted. And who could forget the satisfying sound of the tiny polystyrene beads shifting as you moved? Modern furniture might look sleek, but it doesn't have the personality or the comfort of a 1970s beanbag chair. Tablecloths with bold prints. In the 1970s, dining tables were never bare. They were dressed up with tablecloths covered in bold, vibrant prints, and the louder, the better. Bright florals, checkered patterns, psychedelic swirls, and geometric shapes turned a simple meal into something colorful and lively. These tablecloths were more than just decoration. They were practical too, made from vinyl or thick fabric blends. They were durable enough to handle spills, stains, and the occasional scrape from a dinner knife. Families didn't replace them often either. They lasted years. You might even remember one that seemed to outlive the dining table itself. For many households, tablecloths were the center of family life. They covered the table during Sunday dinners, homework sessions, and birthday parties. When you walked into the kitchen or dining room, those patterns were the first thing to catch your eye, setting the tone for the whole space. Nowadays, minimalist tables have taken over, but those bold 70s tablecloths added a layer of charm that's hard to replicate. Do you remember the one your family had? The one that still made an appearance at every family gathering, no matter how old it got? Wooden furniture. If there's one thing 1970s homes had plenty of, it was wooden furniture. Sturdy, solid, and built to last, these pieces were everywhere. Coffee tables, bookshelves, dining sets, and dressers. Unlike today's mass-produced particle board, 70s furniture had weight. You could feel its quality every time you opened a drawer or set down a cup. Wood wasn't just functional, it was a design choice. Whether it was the dark tones of walnut or the lighter, golden hues of oak, wooden furniture brought warmth and character to every room. Think back to those chunky coffee tables with their thick legs, or the towering bookshelves packed with knickknacks, family photos, and stacks of Reader's Digest. Many homes paired wood furniture with other iconic 70s decor, wood paneling, shag carpet, and globe lights to create spaces that felt earthy and grounded. Sure, the pieces were heavy, but they were practical. You could pile on books, plants, or even sit on them and they'd hold up. And let's not forget, wood furniture often came with its own stories. Maybe your dining table was passed down from your parents, or that dresser stayed in the family for generations. Modern furniture may be sleek, but it's disposable. The wooden pieces from the 70s? They were built to stand the test of time. Bar carts. In the 1970s, having a bar cart in your living room was the height of sophistication. These rolling drink stations were practical, stylish, and perfect for entertaining guests. Whether it was a small gathering or a family celebration, the bar cart rolled out stocked with all the essentials: whiskey, gin, mixers, glasses, and maybe even a little bowl of cocktail peanuts. Bar carts were often made of brass or chrome, with glass or mirrored shelves that gave them a sleek, polished look. Add a few bottles, some ice, and fancy glassware, and suddenly your home felt like a swanky lounge. They weren't just functional, they were a sign that you knew how to host a good time. And let's not forget the presentation. The bar cart lets you play bartender for your guests, pouring drinks, shaking cocktails, and showing off that little touch of class. Did your family have one? Maybe it sat tucked into the corner, waiting for holidays or Saturday nights when company came over. Today, bar carts are making a comeback, but back in the 70s, they were essential. They embodied the easygoing social vibe of the decade. No need for a full bar setup, just wheel out the cart and the party was ready to start. Hanging plants. If you walked into a home in the 1970s, chances are you saw hanging plants swaying gently from the ceiling. Suspended in macrame holders or wicker baskets, these plants brought a bit of the outdoors inside, feeding the decade's obsession with nature-inspired decor. Ferns, spider plants, and pothos were the favorites. Why? Because they were hardy and could thrive even if someone forgot to water them for a week. These lush green beauties weren't just decoration, they added life to a room, softening all the bold patterns and dark wood paneling that defined the 70s look. And who could forget those macrame hangers? Knotted with intricate designs and long fringes, they held plants like works of art. Whether hanging in the kitchen window, a sunny corner of the living room, or on the porch, they gave every space a fresh, natural feel. Hanging plants were part of the 70s love affair with all things earthy and organic. They were a quiet rebellion against the plastic, artificial trends of earlier years. Do you remember your family's hanging plants? Maybe you brushed past one and felt the leaves tickle your shoulder, or maybe you were the one assigned to water them with an old pitcher from the kitchen. Today's homes might have potted plants, but nothing beats the charm of a leafy hanging fern swaying in the sunlight.